Imagine waking up to sky-high electricity bills, only to discover that your own neighbor, the self-proclaimed HOA queen, has been secretly stealing your power for months. But when you finally catch her red-handed, she doesn't apologize. She fights back. She lies, manipulates, and even tries to turn the entire HOA against you. How far will she go to protect her scam? And will she finally face the justice she deserves? This is a real-life battle against entitlement, deception, and a neighbor who thinks the rules don't apply to her. But in the end, the truth always wins. Stay tuned, because this is a story you won't believe. I had always known that dealing with an HOA could be frustrating, but I never imagined I'd be the victim of blatant theft right in my own backyard. It all started when I noticed something strange with my electricity bill. It had been steadily rising for months, but I couldn't figure out why. I lived alone, I wasn't running any new appliances, and I made sure to turn everything off when not in use. At first, I thought maybe the electric company had made a mistake, but when I called them, they assured me that everything on their end was correct. That's when the worry started creeping in. Was there something wrong with my wiring? Was someone using my power without me knowing? The thought gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside, until one night I stepped outside and saw something that made my heart drop. It was late, around midnight, when I walked into my backyard to check the breaker box. I had my flashlight in hand, scanning the yard, when something caught my eye. A thick, black extension cord running from one of my outdoor outlets, stretching across my lawn and disappearing under the fence into my neighbor Karen's yard. My stomach twisted. Was she seriously stealing my electricity? Karen, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, was known for her entitled behavior, but this was a new low. She had recently built a huge greenhouse in her backyard, bragging about how she was going to grow organic, pesticide-free produce and sell it to the community. She made it seem like a noble cause, but now I was beginning to realize that she had been powering the entire thing on my dime. I stood there for a moment, gripping my flashlight tightly, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. My neighbor had been secretly stealing from me for who knows how long, and she didn't even have the decency to ask. I followed the cord to my outlet and saw that she had taped it down to make it less noticeable. She knew exactly what she was doing. My heart pounded in my chest as I debated my next move. Should I unplug it right then and there? Should I confront her? Or should I gather more evidence before making my move? One thing was certain. I wasn't going to let this slide. As I stood in the dark, staring at the stolen electricity flowing into Karen's yard, I realized that this wasn't just a simple case of neighborly overreach. It was full-blown theft, and if she was willing to do this, who knew what else she was capable of? My mind raced with the possibilities, but one thing was for sure. I was going to put an end to it. The next morning, I woke up still boiling with anger. I couldn't shake the image of that black extension cord, silently siphoning my electricity to keep Karen's precious greenhouse running. How long had she been doing this? Weeks? Months? The thought made my blood pressure rise. I knew I had to confront her, but Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed HOA enforcer, the type of person who loved to dictate rules, but never seemed to follow them herself. I needed to be smart about this. So, before heading over, I took out my phone and snapped a few clear photos of the cord, the outlet, and how it led straight into her yard. I needed evidence in case she tried to twist the story. With my proof secured, I walked up to Karen's front door and knocked firmly. I didn't have to wait long. She swung the door open within seconds, as if she had been expecting me. Her expression was a mix of fake surprise and mild annoyance. "Oh, it's you," she said, crossing her arms. "What do you need?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice as calm as possible. "Karen, I noticed something strange last night. There's an extension cord running from my outlet into your yard. Care to explain?" For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes, but she quickly recovered, letting out a fake laugh. "Oh, that. It's nothing, really. Just a little temporary setup. You weren't even using that outlet, so I figured it wouldn't be a big deal." I clenched my jaw. "Not a big deal? Karen, you've been stealing my electricity. That's illegal." Her fake smile wavered for a second, before she rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, come on. It's just a little power. You act like I drained your entire house or something. I'm using it for a good cause. Growing fresh produce for the neighborhood. You should be thanking me." I could barely believe what I was hearing. She actually thought she was entitled to my electricity. "Karen, I don't care what you're using it for. You never asked, and I never agreed. Unplug the cord. Now." Her expression darkened, and her tone turned icy. "Or what? You'll call the cops over a little electricity? That would be such a shame if the HOA found out you were causing trouble for no reason." That last sentence sent a warning bell ringing in my mind. Was she threatening me? Karen had connections in the HOA, and she had gotten plenty of neighbors in trouble before with petty complaints and false reports. I realized then that this wasn't going to be as simple as asking her to stop. She was going to fight me on this, and if I wasn't careful, she might even try to turn the HOA against me. My fists clenched at my sides as I stared at her smug expression. Fine. If she wanted to play games, I'd play too. But I'd play smarter. I knew Karen wasn't going to stop just because I asked. She had made it clear that she thought she could do whatever she wanted, and if I wasn't careful, she'd twist the situation to make me look like the bad guy. I needed to be smart, careful, and most importantly, have undeniable proof. So, instead of pulling the plug on her cord right away, I decided to set a trap. That night, I went outside and adjusted my security camera, angling it perfectly to capture the entire length of the extension cord, from my outlet to Karen's yard. I also contacted my electricity provider and requested a detailed usage report, hoping to show exactly how much extra power had been consumed since Karen's greenhouse went up. If I was going to expose her, I needed solid evidence. I didn't have to wait long. That very night, at around 2 a.m., I caught Karen in the act. I watched from my window as she snuck into my yard, crouching low to avoid detection. She checked the cord, adjusted some tape, and even had the audacity to wipe off my outlet as if to erase any fingerprints. I hit record on my phone, making sure I captured every second. This was it. Proof she was knowingly and deliberately stealing from me. But Karen wasn't done being sneaky. The next morning, when I checked the cord, I realized she had gone a step further. She buried it. She had actually dug a shallow trench, covered the cable with dirt and mulch, and disguised it to make it even harder to notice. That was the final straw. She knew exactly what she was doing. and she wasn't going to stop unless I made her. Armed with my video footage, my photos, and my electricity report, I called for an emergency HOA meeting. If Karen wanted to play her power games, she was about to learn that I wasn't the kind of neighbor to back down. When the HOA board gathered later that evening, Karen walked in with her usual smug expression, as if she had already won. But the moment I stood up and played the footage in front of everyone, her face drained of color. The room fell silent as the HOA board members leaned forward, watching Karen's sneaky midnight theft in complete disbelief. She had no way out of this. But just as I thought she was finally caught, Karen did something that made my blood boil. She flipped the story. "This is ridiculous. He set me up," she yelled, trying to regain control. "He's lying. That footage is edited. He's harassing me because I'm on the HOA board and won't let him break the rules." My jaw clenched. She wasn't just denying it. She was trying to turn the whole situation against me. I could see some of the HOA members exchanging uncertain glances, and I knew I had to act fast. Karen wasn't going down without a fight, but neither was I. Karen was a master manipulator, and she wasn't about to go down without trying to drag me down with her. As soon as I presented the footage to the HOA board, she went into full damage control mode. She stood up, shaking her head dramatically, pointing at me as if I were some sort of criminal. "This is harassment. He's been spying on me, setting up cameras to catch me in some twisted game. This is an invasion of privacy. He's trying to make me look bad because he doesn't like the HOA enforcing rules." The board members looked at each other, uncertain, and that's when I realized Karen was trying to shift the blame onto me. She knew that as a board member, she had influence. If she played the victim well enough, she might just turn the situation in her favor. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Before she could take full control of the narrative, I calmly pulled out my phone and opened my electricity usage report. "Karen, if I set you up, then explain this," I said, showing the board the detailed power logs. "My bills spiked dramatically the moment you set up your greenhouse. The electric company confirmed that an unusual amount of power was being drawn from my meter at all hours of the night. If I were setting you up, Karen, then tell me, how did I make my own electricity bill skyrocket?" Her face twitched, her confidence faltering for the first time. But I wasn't done yet. I turned to the board members. "And if I'm harassing her, why did I find her extension cord buried under dirt and mulch this morning? If she had permission to use my power, why would she go to such great lengths to hide it?" The room went dead silent. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. She knew she was cornered, and for the first time since this started, she had no excuse. One of the HOA board members cleared his throat and folded his arms. "Karen, this is serious. Tampering with someone else's electricity is theft. You could be facing fines, possibly even criminal charges." The tension in the room was thick, and for the first time, I saw panic in Karen's eyes. But just when I thought she had finally run out of tricks, she pulled her most desperate move yet. The very next day, I woke up to an official-looking violation notice taped to my front door. I ripped it off and read it in disbelief. The HOA was now investigating me for unauthorized surveillance and harassment of a board member. Karen had gone behind my back and filed a bogus complaint against me, trying to turn the HOA against me before they could punish her. She was doubling down, fighting dirty, and trying to ruin my reputation before I could fully take her down. I realized then that this wasn't over. Not yet. I stood on my porch, staring at the bogus violation notice in my hands, my heart pounding with frustration. Karen was trying to flip the script and paint me as the villain. It was a dirty move, but I had expected nothing less from someone as manipulative as her. She had stolen my electricity, gotten caught, and now she was trying to ruin my reputation before she faced the consequences. But she had underestimated one thing. I wasn't the type to back down. I had proof, logic, and patience, and I was about to use all three to end this battle for good. That morning, I went straight to the HOA office, violation notice in hand, and demanded to speak with the board. The moment I walked in, I saw Karen sitting there, acting like the sweet, innocent victim. As soon as she saw me, she sighed dramatically and looked at the board members. See? He's harassing me again. This is exactly what I was talking about. I took a deep breath, keeping my anger in check. I wasn't going to let her control the conversation. I calmly laid out all my evidence, the photos, the electricity report, the security footage, even screenshots of my rising electric bills. I showed them timestamps, proving that Karen had been stealing power at night, sneaking into my yard, and deliberately hiding the extension cord. The board members exchanged looks, and I could see their doubt in Karen growing. She had pushed too far, and now her lies were unraveling. One of them finally turned to her. Karen, do you have any proof that he was harassing you? Any security footage, messages, or records? Karen froze. She had nothing. Absolutely nothing. For the first time since this mess started, she was speechless. But then, in one final, desperate move, she stood up, slamming her hands on the table. I don't need proof. I've been a dedicated member of this HOA for years. You're really going to believe him over me? The room fell dead silent. That's when one of the older board members sighed and rubbed his temples. Karen, this is enough. We've received multiple complaints about you abusing your position on the board. And now, with this evidence, we have no choice but to take action. Another board member nodded. You're being removed from the HOA board, effective immediately. Additionally, we'll be forwarding this to the city inspector and electric company. There will likely be fines, and if they decide to escalate this, potential legal consequences. Karen gasped. She looked around the room, her face going pale as she realized she had lost. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within a week, Karen was hit with multiple fines from the city for power theft and unauthorized property modifications. She tried to fight it, but with the security footage and electric company records against her, she had no chance. The HOA turned on her completely, and suddenly, all the neighbors she had bullied over the years started coming forward with their own complaints. Her reputation was ruined. Within a month, she put her house up for sale and moved out quietly, without so much as a goodbye. And as for me, my power bill finally went back to normal, and the neighborhood finally felt peaceful again. Some people think they can get away with anything, but the truth always catches up to them in the end. Message to readers and viewers: never let entitled people take advantage of you. Stand your ground, gather your proof, and fight back the smart way.